So I want you to plug your firewall in. I want you to plug your computer into port 1 of the firewall, and then open up any web browser and navigate to 192.168.1.99. You should pick up an IP address inside the DHCP scope of this range. At the login page, you're going to type in admin, and the default password is blank. It's going to have you reset your password once you log in. So at this point, you should go to a random password generator and generate a password that is incredibly complex and difficult. Now, once you get logged in using this new password, you're going to be taken to the dashboard. Inside of this dashboard is the firmware that it is currently on. Now, after you figure out what firmware it's on, I need you to go to support.fortinet.com, and you're going to go ahead and log in with your credentials. And I want you to go to the download tab and click firmware images. And then on the right side, I want you to click upgrade path. So in the center, you're going to select the model of FortiGate that you're upgrading. In our case, we're going to use a 60E. On the left side, you're going to select the firmware that you're currently on. And on the right side, you're going to select the firmware you're going to. So for example, we can leave it on 5.4 and upgrade to 6.2.3. And what you see here is that a lot of steps are required to get from one version to the other. So just to highlight this, it is incredibly important that you follow this upgrade path. It is the recommended process from the vendor, and it's one of the only ways that you're going to be able to get support if you need it. So when we change this to our version, which is going to be 6.0.4 going to 6.2.2, it's only going to take us 2 upgrades to get from the version that we're on to the version that we're going to. So I'm going to take a screenshot of this for reference. So now that we have an upgrade path, we need to download the files that we need. But I'm going to pause for a moment to highlight these build numbers. When you're downloading the files from the repository, pay close attention to these build numbers because they are key identifiers in the file name that you're searching for. The firmware repository is structured by digit. The first digit is going to be the major release of the firmware. Anything modern you're going to run into is going to pretty much be in the 6.x.x generation of FortiOS, but older models such as the C class may have firmware limitations. The second number is essentially the level of the software generation. We had the 5.x.x generation, and inside of that generation we had levels 5.2.x, 5.4.x, and 5.6.x. Each of these levels provides new features and functionality. For our case, we're going to be going from 6.0.4 to 6.2.2. This level increase offers some major feature changes, such as moving the proxy setting from being a global setting to being a per policy setting. You can read the release notes of each release to see what functionality has changed in between levels. The third digit is the minor release for each level. These numbers should generally be incremented to as quickly as possible inside of a level because they offer security and bug patches that are critical most of the time. Now that we understand how the digits are represented in the file system, we need to navigate to the digit that we need to step through based on the upgrade path tool. After we navigate through the file tree, we need to find the file for our model. For this instance, we are upgrading a 60E firewall. When you search on this web page for 60E, you first land on a higher end model. Skip that, and you go to the next result, and you'll find a block for your model. The models sometimes have different flavors, such as PoE or DSL. For our purposes, we just want to stick to the regular 60E firmware. So once that file is done downloading, you're going to go to the firewall and go to System Settings, and then click Firmware. On the firmware screen, you're going to select the file you just downloaded and click Backup and Upgrade. Always take a backup in case you have a failure during upgrade. The FortiGate has 2 partitions, and in the event of a failure, you can console into the firewall and you can boot off of the secondary partition. And if there are any problems, you have a backup to restore from. All right, so after the system reboots, you can log in and you can see from the dashboard what firmware you're on. You're going to repeat this process until you've walked through the upgrade path and are on a stable firmware that you would like to move into production. Now, notice how the build numbers from the upgrade tool are in the file name that you're downloading. That is how you're going to differentiate the levels and minor patches, because the file name only indicates the generation of the firmware, and you need those build numbers to know whether you're on the 6.2 or the 6.2.2, 6.2.3. That is entirely represented by these build numbers. All right, and that is the process of upgrading firmware on a FortiGate firewall. If you've stuck with me this far, I just want to let you know that releasing next month supposedly is the third level of the 6.x.x generation, 6.4.0. It's going to add somewhere around 350 new features from what I've heard so far. One of the most interesting things that I've read so far is that the security fabric is going to add support for multi-VDOM mode. This feature has been one of the most sorely needed features for the high-end firewalls, so I'm really excited for that. And you know, I just can't wait. And when I get when I get my hands on that firmware, I'll upload a video and tinker around with it and show you guys what's up. Anyway, if you have any questions, leave them down below in the comments. If you've enjoyed this video and you would like to see more videos on firewalls and cybersecurity, click the subscribe button and turn on notifications. See you next time.